Hey, what's up, party people? It's your old pal F here. Welcome to another edition of F Bombs. As I've said before, this is my little corner of the interwebs where I talk about anything I feel like talking about at the time, but I try to keep the focus on cartoons, animation, and that sort of thing. If you are unfamiliar with me, my name is John Fountain, and I've directed, storyboard, written, produced a whole bunch of cartoons from the early aughts that either you or your parents probably grew up with. But currently, I am running this channel right here, which is Fountain's Pen Cartoons. For those who don't know, this is a combination independent animation studio slash mentorship program where I have taken under my wing a increasingly large group of people who were frustrated by the state of animation today, because it is brutal out there. I don't think I need to really mince words. It is brutal out there, and there's this constant paradox of I can't get experience because I can't get a job, and I can't get a job because I can't get experience. Well, that's where Fountain's Pen Cartoons comes in. Wanting to help out in some way, I formed this collaborative collective of folks, and we are making cartoons free of charge, new original free cartoons to put up here on YouTube. So when you get done watching this video, please, please, please like, share, subscribe. But I'm also a huge believer in word of mouth. Please just tell a friend. Tell people you know just in everyday life. Maybe people who don't even think to watch YouTube. We keep our content pretty PG-13 here, so parents can review this stuff and they think their kids would like it. Please show it to your kids or cousins or nieces, nephews, whatever. Anyway, point being, when you're done watching this video, please check out the other stuff on this channel, and especially the cartoons, because that's why we exist. And I am here purely as a support system to help get our watch hours up. I'm not afraid to admit that. So anyway, and by the way, we have got some incredibly cool stuff coming your way. One of the reasons I wanted to just make a video today, I wasn't even really sure what I was going to talk about, was because I'm just so excited about what's coming up here at Fountain's Pen Cartoons. I've got tons of little like sneak peeks and stuff, so please look through the shorts, look through the videos. But holy cow, you guys are going to be blown away. So, like I said, follow me on all social media. I'm really easy to find for updates and all that sort of thing. But man, oh man, we've got some cool stuff coming your way. So please help spread the word. We are a really, really grassroots little organization. We're not funded by anybody. We don't have any patrons. We don't have any Kickstarters. We don't have anything going on like that. And let's face it, I'm not particularly famous, so we really, really count on people like you sort of telling a friend, spreading the word. And that's how we want to grow anyway. Like I want people to love us for who we are. I want people to respond to what we're actually making here. So again, please give it a watch. Like, share, subscribe, and spread the word. Okay, objectivity. Today, I want to talk about a topic that I actually feel very, very strongly about, and that is objectivity. Objectivity meaning seeing things as they are, not as you wish they would be. And it sounds like a pretty simple concept, but it's one of these things that I think a lot of people struggle with. I think every human being walking this earth struggles with objectivity because we are beings of subjective perception. That is to say, we take in information and we filter it through our own experiences, and it's very, very hard to discipline yourself enough to look at a thing. I don't care if it's an apple. I don't care if it's the nightly news. To look at a thing and see it for what it really is, and judge it based purely on the facts and information. Um, it's a concept that is so paramount to all of existence, and yet it's something I don't think people give that much thought to. Now, today, I'm going to be discussing it as it pertains to animation and cartoons, and more specifically, a career in animation or a career in cartoons. Because here's the thing: when I first got my start in the industry, I happened to come along at a very fortunate time. The industry itself was just absolutely booming. Now, I don't like to go around saying I was necessarily lucky, because I did in fact make my own luck. That is to say, um, I was very proactive in making sure that when I first moved to California, that every studio had received about 20 portfolios from me. Every studio had received phone calls from me. Like, even before I set foot in California, I made sure that at least a handful of people knew my name and knew that I was coming. And now, by the way, I did it in a very not obtrusive, polite, um, friendly sort of way. I didn't constantly like shove myself in their face, but I made sure that people were aware of me. And like I would send my portfolio. This, by the way, this is a very different time. You have to keep in mind. This is not how anything works anymore. But I would send my portfolios to the major studios, and every studio has a listed phone number. I would call up the number, say, hey, I submitted my portfolio. I wanted to check and see if anyone had reviewed it. And again, this is super duper important. I was incredibly polite and patient. Um, and I would never badger them. I would make a point of, when I spoke to someone on the phone, I would write down their name so that the next time I call, I could say, hey, I spoke with so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. But I made a real point of skating a very fine line between being ambitious and being a pest. I made absolute certain that I wasn't being a pest to anybody. So consequently, when I first moved to California, and I tell this story in great detail. If you look in the other F-bomb videos, there's one called Cartoon Chaos. I absolutely highly recommend it if you are thinking about a career in animation, or are just curious about how I got my start in animation, because mine was very strange. So I highly recommend watching that video. But famously, I went to, having absolutely no prospects, I went to there was a big animation job festival in town, and I showed up there on the last night, and they were getting ready to close, and it didn't look like I was going to get in. So I just approached every table, and I was like, hey, you know what, I know you're not going to have time to review my portfolio with me, but I have spoken to you on the phone a couple times, so I just wanted to say hello. And by the way, I was sincere about that. I was not trying to cut in front of any lines or anything like that, but at every single table, the person reviewing portfolio said, oh, well, by all means, have a seat. Let's see what you have. And that was the thing that, there were a lot of other little factors before that, but that was the thing that got me my first interview and my first test with Klasky Chupo, which got me my first sort of major studio job at Klasky Chupo, storyboarding for the Wild Thornberrys. And the rest, as they say, is history. From there I went to Nickelodeon. From Nickelodeon I went to Disney, and then I bounced around from studio to studio over the course of my career. The whole time also pitching my own shows, and with varying degrees of success, of course. But the whole point is, I was very proactive, and I made my own luck. But that job fair was such a pivotal moment, and I was so grateful walking away from it, that anytime any of the studios I worked at had a job fair where they were having people do portfolio reviews, I would always volunteer to be one of the people to sit and do portfolio reviews. And what was interesting about doing that was, first of all, at the time, there were a lot more sort of animation related things that the general public could just, pay a certain fee, show up to, and show their portfolio and potentially get a job. That's how it was done back then. Um, but and I don't think they exist nearly, or at least not nearly as much as they once did. But so I would go to these big festivals, and I would, I did this a lot for Nickelodeon, and I would sit across, I would sit at a table from dusk till dawn during these festivals, and I would look over people's portfolios. And it's funny because I would overhear people at other tables reviewing portfolios, and the reviews that they kept getting were kind of the same over and over and over again. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, this looks great. Keep working at it. Just keep working at it and submit your stuff. And the fact of the matter is, when you review portfolios at these job fairs, about, and this is being generous, about 90% of the portfolios you see are from people who have absolutely no chance. Here's what I'm talking about. I would have somebody show me their art portfolio who was in their 40s, lived in Idaho, and their artwork looked like the artwork of a grade schooler. And it would be different if these people were showing me their artwork and saying, hey, check out my artwork. What do you think of my art? Because that's an entirely different matter altogether, because I believe art is for everybody. Everybody should engage in the arts. Everybody should express themselves through art if they feel so led. But these were people who were looking for a career in animation. And I was one of the few people that you would come across at those job fair tables, who would say to you, um, first of all, here's how I would put it. And this is still true. This is still absolutely true. I am never, ever, ever going to tell anybody not to pursue your dreams. If you have a dream of working in the animation industry, and you are 40 and live in Idaho, and your work looks like that of a grade schooler, I'm not going to tell you, no, absolutely not, don't pursue your dreams. No, I would never say that. But what I am going to tell you is, if you truly, really, realistically hope to break into the animation industry and make a career out of it, you have a lot of work to do. And this is what I would tell people. I would say, you have to keep in mind that, because a lot of these people were people who decided just 2 years ago or whatever that they wanted to make cartoons. And in their defense, the process of breaking into the industry, there is no one process and there is no sort of one path. And it's not as though it's a path that is very well known among the general population, because why would you? So I mean, they had no idea how it was done, and that's nobody's fault really, because again, it's not like, it's not like auditioning for the role in a play, or auditioning for a voiceover part or something like that, where you go, you show up, you audition, and you either get it or you don't. It's very, 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 very different. Because animation, in addition to needing artistic skills, it's a very technical field. So, um, so anyway, I would tell these people, I'm like, I'm not going to tell you not to try. By all means, if you feel really, really driven, go for it. However, here's what you need to do. And the first thing I would tell them they need to do is realize that you are entering into an industry that is already highly, highly, highly competitive. Um, People at the time, and people all the time, are sort of clawing and fighting to get their way into the animation industry, which many of them wouldn't if they knew just how cutthroat it can be once you get there, because goodness knows I was surprised. Um, and I would say to them, I'm like, you have to understand, you're going to be competing against people who have known they have wanted to do this since the day they were born. Okay, you're going to be competing against people who have been practicing at this practically their entire lives and are 20 years younger than you, or have more experience than you, or have already been working towards it for a good long time. You're going to be competing against those people. So yes, you can pursue this, but you have a lot of work to do. You need to not only catch up, you have to surpass the others, and surpass them in a way that sets you apart from them, in a way that makes people go, oh wow, this, yes, this person, I haven't seen their portfolio before, they're from out of nowhere, but holy cow, they're so good, we just have to go with them. You have to not just catch up to the race, but you have to pass absolutely everybody who's got a head start, and who's younger, and who knows the ins and outs of it better than you do, and who have been preparing for this for their whole lives. And that was not easy. It was not easy, and it absolutely was not fun. It was no fun looking at someone's portfolio and you could see the earnestness, you could see the passion and the joy and the love, you could see all of those things. And again, from a strictly artistic perspective, I find that stuff wonderful. I love seeing people's artwork. I particularly enjoy seeing artwork by people who are not necessarily trying to get in the industry, by people who are just doing it for the love of it, or for the joy of the craft, or because it gives them personal satisfaction. I love seeing people's work. So, looking these people in the eye and saying, if I'm being perfectly honest, like I said, I'm not going to tell you not to try, but you've got a lot of work to do, and you've got everything working against you. Absolutely no fun whatsoever, and exhausting, by the way, because that was the majority of people. And to my shock and amazement, practically everybody that I gave that sort of bitter pill to wound up being grateful. They would say to me, oh gosh, thank you, because prior to talking to me, they would tell me, all I've been getting is the same generic, never give up on your dreams style reaction. And it was very, very few people were handing out the news that this is actually work to get into this industry. It's hard work, and it's breaking in is no guarantee that you're going to be successful, and breaking in itself is intensely difficult. So more often than not, I had very few people who were not actually grateful to hear that news. And I learned from there on out that you don't do people any favors by saying to them, "Oh yeah, your work looks great. You just never give up on your dreams." You don't do people any favors by giving them a critique that is dishonest. And now that doesn't give anybody carte blanche to be a jerk about it. I tried to do this in a way that was warm and friendly, because again, I'm on everybody's side. I want everybody in the world to lead a fulfilling life. But I don't think I'm doing anybody any favors by saying, oh yeah, you're going to get a job tomorrow. It's like, no. So I kind of, after that experience, and having had so many people say to me, wow, thank you for your honesty, and thank you for being upfront with me about what I need to do, because there were people who were ready to spend their life savings moving to Los Angeles with the hopes of breaking into animation. And I was just like, oh man, no, don't do that, because you're not ready. And Now, to tag something onto this, if you're hearing yourself in this, again, by all means, don't give up if that's your passion, if that's your goal. But objectively, look at your work. Look at your work and compare it to the work. And now it's never been easier. See, back then it was a lot harder because the internet wasn't what it is now. Now it's a lot easier. Look at the work of people who are working today, who are making it big in the industry. Compare your work to theirs objectively and ask yourself, can I compete with this person? And now, I've talked about this many times. Sometimes your draftsmanship may not be up to snuff, or maybe you don't have as much experience, but you bring something to it that absolutely nobody else can. Sometimes that works in your favor, and sometimes you can kind of luck out and somebody will see that. And look, I feel like that's very largely what helped me out, because I came into the animation industry with experience in writing and not just animation drawing, but illustration. I had studied all kinds of different things, so I brought a lot of different perspectives that most animators didn't bring. So if that's you, that's something you've got working in your favor. But you also have to, again, as I said, remember that you're competing against people who have been working their angle for lots longer than you. And that's another thing. Like one of the issues that I ran into when I would try and get other jobs was I would go around telling people, "Oh, I can do it all. I can do character design. I can do storyboards. I can do da 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 da." Well, people don't, studios a lot of times don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that you can do it all. They want you to specialize in one thing and be able to, like, just rock that. So that brings me to what I want to talk about today, objectivity. Comparing your work objectively to those that are already in the industry. Because I still get people who are coming to me and saying, I want to be in the animation industry, and they're utterly, utterly not ready. And by the way, this applies to animators, this applies to voiceover actors, this applies to musicians, this applies to absolutely everybody in the pipeline process. You need to objectively compare your work to those who are already in the industry and ask yourself, where do I stand? How do I hold up against people who are still working, or who are working? And you need to ask yourself, do I have work to do? Do I have to, study harder, push harder, practice more, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And if that's the case, well, then that's what you need to do. You cannot just expect to gain entry into the animation industry simply because it's been a dream of yours since you were a kid. It's not enough. I'm sorry. Now, the good news is, with all of this, is that if you're sitting there listening to this and thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this is me. Like I have all these hopes and dreams and aspirations, but my drawings, or my writing skills are not completely up to par. I don't have any experience, yada, yada, yada. It has never been a better time for people like you, because indie animation has exploded into such an amazing, amazing universe of different people getting together and collaborating on projects and doing stuff together, that somewhere out there are other people who are either at your level or slightly ahead of your level who are eager to work with other people. This is where you get practical experience, and this is where you can really kind of hone your craft. It has never been a better time for that. Or if you are more on the sort of, I want to be a creator, I want to push my own idea, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say to you, never try and pitch your stuff to the studios. Because again, you never know. You might have something that's exactly what they were looking for. I'm never going to say don't do it. But I am going to say, if you find yourself perpetually either not getting anywhere at all or being told the same, oh, this is nice, but this is not what we're looking for, and people passing on it, do it anyway. Do it anyway and put it out there in whatever. Do it as a comic. Do it as a, do it as a um, storytime cartoon, or do it, just put it out there yourself and look for opportunities to gain more experience. Because again, we didn't have this back then. I mean, there was independent film, and there were people occasionally who, would do independent animation and try and get it into film festivals and stuff like that. But, that was a whole rigmarole all its own. But now it's the Wild West. Anybody can get out there and put their stuff out there. So I guess what I'm getting at is there's an enormous difference between being in animation and being in the animation industry. If you have a passion for making cartoons, or if you have a passion for doing animation, just do your animation and put it out there. Don't obsess over necessarily being in the industry. The industry is an entirely different beast altogether. Now, I realize this is disappointing because a lot of people are not just seeking to be in the animation industry, they're seeking to make a career out of animation. And I am telling you, that is tough. There are people I know who worked at Pixar who are looking for jobs right now. There are people with all kinds of crazy amounts of experience who are unemployed right now. The industry is dicey. There are no guarantees. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. It doesn't matter if you created X show or whatever. There's simply no guarantees. There's no real retirement plan. There's nothing like that. So, be sure to ask yourself, is it that I want to make animation? Is it that I want to make cartoons? Or do I want to be in the industry? And those are two completely separate things. Now, one could lead to the other, absolutely. So again, I'm not saying don't try, but I am saying understand objectively what it is you're getting into, and be realistic about what your expectations are. But like I said, indie animation is having such a renaissance right now, and look, the reason I got into producing independent animation is because I was seeing so much stuff that I loved. I'm like, oh, I want to be a part of this, and I want there to be more. I think audiences are like that right now too. I think people are craving stuff, and I think the sort of backlash against AI and a bunch of other stuff, I think people are craving stuff that is sincere and that's genuine and that looks like it came from someone that they could relate to, as opposed to, some group of artists from on high that are untouchable and blah 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 blah. I think people are responding now to stuff that's a lot more real. So again, the time has never been better. But these are questions you need to ask yourself before you send me or anybody else an email or a message or something on social media asking the question, hey, how do I get my start in animation? These are the questions you need to ask yourself. Is it that you want to make cartoons? If it's just that you want to make cartoons, then just make them. Just do it. Accept the fact that you may have to have a day job. And use that day job as a source of inspiration, because I gotta tell you, nothing gives me more inspiration than drawing from my days as a dishwasher, or drawing from my days when I had to unload trucks for Target, and that was not that long ago. Drawing from my times when I was not involved in animation. That's where real life happens, and that's where you can really put stuff into your stories that other people can't. So if it's just about making cartoons, then just make cartoons. Just make animation. Put your story out there. If it's about getting into the industry, then one of the things that I'm telling you right now, today, starting now, you really, really need to do is start looking at your work objectively. Look at it objectively, compare it to others, and say, okay, I'm not that far behind, but I'm not that far ahead either. What do I got to do to catch up? What do I got to do to set myself apart from absolutely everybody else? And how do I work this mechanism to make my way into the industry? Because the bottom line is, There's no one set way. There's a thousand different ways. And by the way, to both camps, to the camp who is just going to be the next independent animator, to the camp who wants to break into the industry and work for the big studios, I wish both of you camps nothing but the best. I cannot wait to see what you come up with, because I love it all. I love big studio stuff. I love independent stuff. I just, again, one of the reasons I got into it was because I wanted more. And I think other people are like me in that they want more too. So, by all means, get out there, make stuff. And when you do, let me know, because I want to see it. Because I'm a glutton for this stuff. I absolutely cannot get enough. And I feel like there's a lot of people who feel the same way. So on that note, I'm going to wrap this up. And again, this is why Fountain's Pen Cartoons exists. So please show us your support. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word. And like I said, everybody, in absolutely all sincerity, I am rooting for you. I am in your corner. I want to see you make stuff. And when you do, let me see it, because I can't wait. That's it for me for today. Thank you for tuning in. Now get out there and make stuff. Zigga zagga, party people.